Hello everyone, my name is Bernadette, and in this video I'll be talking about the fiber optic network. And if you've never seen a fiber optic, in its simplest form, it looks something like this. This is the vintage clock, and this is the more modern fiber lamp that you'll see floating around Amazon if you search it up. Might be the next TikTok trend or something. But as you can see, there's an LED at the base, and light will travel along the fiber until it reaches the very end. You see these pinpoints of light right over here. And how does this work? If you remember from last week's lab, we looked at total internal reflection, in which the critical angle, or the angle at which all light is reflected as once it reaches the surface, as opposed to refracted, in which it would go into the secondary material. So we looked at the critical angle, and we saw that it's one of the criteria was that the primary material has to have a higher index of refraction than the secondary material, as seen in the equation over here. And when you reach all of these criteria and you shine a ray of light through this something like glass or silicon dioxide, the light will just continue to propagate until it reaches the end of the fiber. And here in this situation, we see glass and then air at the end, but in typical fibers, you want to have another layer of protection. So I'll have a structure like this. This is the core, or the silicon dioxide that I was talking about earlier, with the high index of refraction, and then the cladding, which has a lower index of refraction, and it surrounds the initial glass or silicon dioxide. And then of course, depending on what you're using the optic fiber for, you can have secondary and tertiary like coatings protection, and that protection is needed in order to prevent attenuation. Attenuation is caused by external force or imperfections, which basically causes the critical angle to shift to be smaller, and then you'll have refraction. As you can see here, the ray of light is going past the core into the cladding. And when that happens, the light is lost from the fiber. So what exactly are these used for? The optical fibers can be used to transmit data using light. They're much more effective than copper cables. As we've went over in previous classes, copper cables use moving electrons, and moving electrons can generate an electromagnetic field, which is subject to different kinds of interference. So a lot of times we use optical fibers to transmit light using what's called pulse code modulation. And this whole system of pulse code modulation through optical fibers is the backbone of our internet. So using light, we can transmit signals to translate it to a binary code, which is interpreted by the computer to create things such as like the video you're seeing here, or websites, and all like different kinds of stuff. And this whole network requires repeaters or amplifiers to continue the signal, because eventually the light, without repeaters, the light can only travel up to 100 kilometers by itself. So it needs things like amplifiers and repeaters to just continue that signal. And like I said, the optical fiber is the backbone of the entire internet. This is a map of all of the cables that we actually have in place in the ocean. And you can see these yellow lines are cables owned by big companies such as like Amazon and Google and AT&T. And these are huge optical fiber cables that are very much protected to withstand forces such as like underwater pressure and like wildlife. And yeah, so using these cables, signals are able to be transmitted from one data center to another. Data centers that are owned by Google and Amazon, as I said before. And all of that happens within like a fraction of a second. Here's a picture of a cable going through a coral reef. They are laid by plows I would assume that these plows disrupt the coral reefs a little bit, but I didn't really see a lot of information on that. But the process of inlaying these cables is uh, very interesting. There's a long there's a pretty cool video on it. They also do double duty as seismometers, so they can detect uh, tremors. They can detect tremors under the sea. Uh, so these quakes will cause like a delayed signal within the optical from yeah, they will cause a delayed signal. And so with the right equipment, you can detect like the oscillations of the different signals, and that's how we can see stuff like the epicenters of earthquakes. And yeah, thank you guys for watching. Optical fibers is a very interesting topic. If you go online and search up more, I couldn't really talk about a lot of it, but it's pretty interesting. Thank you. See you guys in class.